what the question of the day is. Because that was something that I was running by a few of you guys, if you're in the know, yesterday, and I got a couple good answers for it. So the question of the day is what would you consider a game or gaming experience that changed your mind about a game genre? Question mark. Oh my God, Buttspot. What would you butter a game or gaming experience that butted your mind about a game genre? You could have done that better, Buttspot. I'm a little disappointed in you. A little disappointed in you. Twilight? Like, what do you mean Twilight? Like Twilight? That changed your mind about vampires? Maybe. But we're going to have to dip into the old voicemail because I did get a few answers to this question over the old gamehuggers.com. I'm just kidding. There actually is no gamehuggers.com. But there is a facebook.com/gamehuggers on the other side. Down there for Facebook, Game Huggers on Discord, Game Huggers on YouTube as well. Anyway, the Game Huggers on Facebook, the Facebook group for like buttgles, buttspot, buttgles. Oh my Lanta. Anyway, the question was, what would you consider a game that changed your mind about a game genre? So it could be good or bad. It could be like I loved all, first-person shooters until I played this, and then I realized they sucked, or whatever. So I'm going to give a couple voice messages and answer the answer that I got from them. Some voices you may recognize, some you might not. And then I'll give my answer because I've got a couple different answers for game experiences myself. But hey, let's begin. Let's begin. Right in here. Give me 20 seconds to pull this stuff up. All right, so we got 3 different messages here, and I will start with the first one. You guys ready to rock? Here we go. I'm gonna make sure that you guys can hear this too.
To go back and answer your question, Josh, the only game that I can think of that ever did that was NBA Jam. That's the only basketball game I actually care about. I did not care about any other basketball game. Not fun at all. Wii Golf. Wii Golf would be okay too. Otherwise, I'm not much into golfing games. So, Base Wars for baseball. Definitely, yeah. I'm gonna definitely go NBA Jam for basketball. Not a basketball game guy. Otherwise, I can't really think of much of anything. I'm not a first person shooter, but I do play first person shooters. So I don't really count that because I got the Star Wars games and stuff like that. I guess I have to play some different genres. I'm not a simulation. Well, no, I'm a big simulation guy, but I'm not like a farming guy. I did play Pokemon. I enjoyed Pokemon. Not sure.
Well, that was a message. I didn't really care for at all about fighting games until I played Virtua Fighter 4. Thighs, you like Virtua Fighter 4? Holy shit. I love Virtua Fighter 4. There's this weird thing with me and Virtua Fighter games. I love Virtua Fighter games. Like I love, love, love it. I adore them. Um, but I think the even numbered games are a lot better than the odd numbered games. Weird. Virtua Fighter 1 is great. But Virtua Fighter 2 on the Saturn when that was released blew my mind. Like that was the first 3D fighting game that I played that I fucking loved. And 3 came out in the arcades and it was really good, but when we got that home port on the Dreamcast, it was like at that point when Virtua Fighter 3, they called it Tournament Bout, TB, 3TB, first came out. At that point on the Dreamcast, we had Soul Calibur and we had Dead or Alive 2. And so when Virtua Fighter 3 came out, it was like, yeah, This game came out while the Saturn was in, and then it finally got ported years later. And at that point, it was already far behind everything else. So I was not a big fan of Virtua Fighter 3. God's Fire, you said you remember playing Virtua Fighter 1 in the arcades? Yeah. I liked the idea of 3D fighting games, but my heart and soul was in 2D fighting games. So like when Virtua Fighter 1 came out, it was like there was Mortal Kombat 3, there was Street Fighter, Super Street Fighter 2, and I think Street Fighter 3 was being talked about at that time. There was so many good 2D fighters that I was like, I looked at Virtua Fighter 2 and it was like, that's really technically a masterpiece. It's a marvel, but the game sucked. Like it was just not playable. Played at the Wausau Mall arcade. Yeah, Aladdin's Castle. Great place. Aladdin's Castle had a lot of those games, though. Virtua Fighter 1 was there, Virtua Fighter 2. Soul Calibur, I remember playing it there first before I ever even played it on Dreamcast. Yeah, tons of great fighting games. But Virtua Fighter 4, hey, how's it going, Alucard? Yeah, VF4 is tough. I've actually got both versions of Virtua Fighter 4 on the PS2. There's the Virtua Fighter 4, the original one that came out, and then there was the Evolution, VF4 Evolution, that had 2 extra characters in it that also came out on the PlayStation 2. And when Virtua Fighter 4 Evolution came out, it was fucking released. Kage. A man, he knows Kage. But when Virtua Fighter 2 Evolution came out, it was actually released for $19.99 on the PS2. Like that was launch day one, and my friend Nigel and I, we bought that fucker right away, and we were playing the hell out of that. It was so good. Mega Mix is great. Fighters Mega Mix on the Saturn, awesome game. That was 2 of Sega's different franchises. It was Virtua Fighter and the Fighting Vipers, and they did a one versus game, called Fighters Mega Mix on the Saturn. That was probably the best fighting game. Okay, the best Sega-made fighting game on the Saturn. It's hard to say it's the best fighting game on the Saturn because Street Fighter Alpha 3 and King of Fighters 94, 95, 96, 97. It's hard to say what's the best fighting game on the Saturn. Fucking Darkstalkers, X-Men versus Street Fighter, like all those games. Anyway, Fighters Mega Mix is really good though. Fighters Mega Mix is the best Virtua Fighter game that came out on the Saturn, and it's not even a Virtua Fighter game. Saturn has so many good fighting games. That is one genre that the Saturn I would put up against anything. The Dreamcast is also another great one for fighting games, but man, there's just so many great games. But anyway, Virtua Fighter 5 then would be an odd-numbered game in the series, which I really, really, really liked. But it is not, in my heart, it is not as good as Virtua Fighter 4. Like 4 is the king, and I wish they would do a HD remake of Virtua Fighter 4 because I thought the graphics were awesome. I thought the levels were great. The characters they introduced were awesome. Whereas Virtua Fighter 5 was kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, true. The real port of X-Men Street Fighter because the PlayStation version sucked compared to the Saturn version. And we didn't even get that in the US. So it was like, great. Awesome. But man, yeah, Virtua Fighter. Hey, so anyway, what Dorkfather had said in his message though, NBA Jam was that game. I always enjoyed playing basketball games or sports games or multiplayer sports games. I really, really did. Shun-Di, yes. And Shun-Di, there's the Sega world is something we could talk about for hours because I think Ring Fit Runner knows Shenmue, right? A couple guys here, I bet you guys played Shenmue before. The main villain in Shenmue is Landi, who is an uncle or a father or a grandfather to Shun-Di. And there's some crazy like storyline mixes there. And man, oh man, Shenmue and Virtua Fighter, there's some characters that crossbreed here and there. And that story's never even been finished yet. That story's still not been told. But yeah, there's characters in there that are related. And that's aw-butsome. Thank you, Buttsbot. And NFL Blitz. Exactly. So I enjoyed sports games on like the Nintendo and like, Genesis and Super Nintendo and stuff. But man, I agree with Dorkfather. I think when NBA Jam came out, it was like this totally different concept. Although I shouldn't say different concept, but it was done so well because there was brawler type basketball games before NBA Jam. And there's like even some people that think the NBA Jam actually had a predecessor that was just kind of souped up to be NBA Jam because Midway did Arch Rivals, which was an old 80s basketball arcade game, which was 2-on-2 that you could kind of like elbow and smack each other and punch each other and knock each other down. But it wasn't until NBA Jam when the game really flowed really well. And that was fucking perfect. It was so good. Yes, it was like Mortal Kombat of basketball games because it was Midway. Midway did You know, and Midway did NFL Blitz. Midway did NBA Jam. Midway did the Mortal Kombat series. It was great. It was so popular. It was so huge. Whatever game console got a version of NBA Jam was like immediately doing well. It was just super cool. All right, let's listen to another voice message. Let's listen to another voice message. Thank you, Dorkfather, for sending that one in. I appreciate it.
You know, that's a really good question. I had to like really think about this. There hasn't been anything recently, like in my adult life, I don't think. Well, maybe. It depends. I would say, I think with the exception of Pokemon, growing up, I was never really into RPGs. I never really liked them. I never really got into them. I never really kind of just got them, I guess. They were too complex for me as a kid, I think, and I just never really gave them a shot until I think when I was in college when the DS version of Chrono Trigger came out, and I played that game for the first time. That kind of grew a love of RPGs in me, and I started going back and playing some old RPGs after that.
RPGs. Chrono Trigger and Pokemon. I get that, dude. That is actually our good friend Chris Bossardet, who wanted to contribute tonight. Who's this nerd? So RPGs, for me, it's weird because I always loved RPGs, and he and I kind of chatted a little bit about that after I got that message from him, because one of my first gaming memories was an RPG. Well, I shouldn't say RPG, I guess action RPG called Hydalyte on the NES. And for whatever reason, I got fucking infatuated with that game and I wanted more. As soon as I saw there was a Zelda, I was like, what Zelda? I need more. Dragon Warrior, Ultima games. Like, I was like, give me more, like that top-down view of walking around through a town and fighting monsters and going into dungeons and beating bosses. Like, oh my God. I always loved that type of game. And it wasn't because I don't think, and he said like it was maybe too complex. Those type of games were too complex. I wanted games that were super involving like that, because so you never played an RPG until you got Mario RPG and played the crap out of it to 100%. Yeah. Ironically, I've never played through Mario RPG, and I know it's a good game because I loved what I played out of it. It's just one of those games where you get to a certain point and then you put it down and then you come back to it and you're like, I don't even remember what I was doing. That happens a lot with a lot of games that are really wonderful. I've done that with Chrono Trigger. I've done that with Super Mario RPG. I've never finished those before. I've never played. I'm playing Super Mario RPG. I've never played a single Dragon Warrior all the way through past 4. I've only played the first 3, and then the 4th one I think was so long that I stopped about halfway. So like, and I know there's 11 Dragon Warriors now. So fuck, I'm so far behind. And I own most of the Dragon Warriors or Dragon Quests, but I haven't played through them. Yeah, I can't remember how far I got into Mario RPG, but I had like Mallow, and I think Princess was saved at that point. I had Bowser. I don't know, 4 or 5 hours into it probably. And I know the game's not massive. It's only about a 20-hour RPG. So Mario RPG is one of the best Mario games of all time. I'm down for that. I actually thought personally that the Mario and Luigi game on the Game Boy Advance was just as good or better. But then again, never experienced them both to the end, so I can't really comment on that. But they're so good. So good. You could get it done in like 4 streams easy. Mario RPG in 4 streams? My streams are generally about 2 to 3 hours-ish. So you're saying I could get it done in like 8 to 10 hours? I thought it was like a 20-hour game, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, it's going on the list. It's going on the list. God's Fire, I'm putting it on the list. I don't know what that was, but that's what I got going on. So yes, RPGs I've always been into, and what Chris had said, basically like he thought they were too complex and never really got into them until he experienced Chrono Trigger, until he experienced like Pokemon a little bit, and that all makes sense. It all makes sense. I understand that totally. I could tell you right now that my worst tendencies as a gamer, because I'm a gamer, I guess. Am I a gamer? I don't know. I'm a fucking nerd, that's for sure. Is that I'll get games, get really excited about them, but then only play them about halfway through or even less than that sometimes, and then never finish it. And I've got a backlog of games like that where I've played several times, several hours, and then got to a point where I was just like, and then I let it sit too long. And jokingly, what was I playing? Oh, I was I don't maybe it was a Lunar game. I think it was one of the remakes of Lunar Silver Star Story on the PSP, where I was playing it and I got pretty far into it and I was like, I love this game. And then I set my PSP down and I was doing something else and we're planning on some kind of a trip or going somewhere or something and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna play Lunar. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's been a little bit since I played it. Let me see when my save was from. And it was 2016. I hadn't played that game in over 5 years. It wasn't just a couple years. It wasn't just a while. It was like 5 years. It was like a child ago. Like I've got a 7-year-old. When I last played it, she was basically born, like a newborn. What's up, Wink? How's it going, my friend? Wink, we got the question of the day going right now, and it's just been kind of fun. We're hanging out. We're chatting quick before I get into rock and roll racing. And the question of the day is, what's one game or gaming experience that changed your opinion of a genre of games? I said genre. I meant genre. We had Virtua Fighter 4 was one that Thighs brought up because she didn't really care so much about fighting games, but then Virtua Fighter 4 was like, boom, fighting games are awesome. We heard NBA Jam, got our good friend Dorkfather into sports games or basketball games. You were a hot dog and you were starving, would you eat yourself? That's the question of the day. And then Chris had said that he wasn't really certain that RPGs were really for him until he played Chrono Trigger. All right, we got one more voice message. Let's dive into this. I think I know who this sumbitch is. This sumbitch gonna give me a message out longer.
I can think of two. Actually, the first one, just to get it out of the way, is the Souls genre of games. Bloodborne. Once I actually got to the first boss and started leveling up, and then you incrementally just get stronger and you feel it every time you level up. And it's an, oh, I see moment. And then you get better and better at the combat. And then things that were hard were trivial. And it's just, and then you realize all of their games are like that. And it's, holy crap. So, get that one out of the way. As you know, I like those games. But the one that I think you'll find interesting, Metroid Prime got me into the Metroid games. I had zero interest until I saw my buddy playing Metroid Prime on the Wii. And then I was like, holy crap, there's something to these games. Played through that one, played through the sequel, played through, I don't know, a number of other Metroid games, and I love the side-scrolling ones now. So that one, that's an interesting one. There are, however, two series that people love that I still haven't found a game to get me into them. Metal Gear Solid series, it's just not my bag. And, oh shoot, what was the other one I was thinking of?
Resident Evil.
Resident Evil. I don't dig them. They're not my thing. I don't, and I love survival horror games. Like Condemned Criminal Origins, I'm playing through it again. It's an amazing game, but I played through Resident Evil 4. I have 6, and of course I played 1 and 2, and they just, not my thing. Yeah. So there you go. I hope that's good. What are yours?
Oh, well, good question. So I don't have a lot of experience with the Souls games. I do have one of them. I think it's Bloodborne on my PS5. So I will eventually get to playing that. And hell, maybe I'll even stream it. I've seen so many people streaming those games, and they just love them. So maybe that'll be something I'll try to do. But I completely agree with the Metroid ones. That is a series that is so loved by just about everyone. But there's a few games in the series that I'm not necessarily a huge fan of. Metroid Dread, I've actually never tried it, but what I've watched of it, I wasn't 100% into it, and I don't really know why. It seems like it's kind of the perfect combination of the side-scrolling and the first-person shooter style stuff. I don't know. That and the Metroid Other M, I think it was. I'm not a huge fan of that one either. Um, and the Metroid Prime games I like, but for me personally, I love the side scroller ones. So I think what I need to do is like reinvest time into the Metroid Prime games, especially with Prime 1 being remastered again for the Switch. Like that might be a good game to dive into and just like fall in love with all over again. But I loved Metroid, the original Metroid, played the hell out of that on the NES. That was a game that was just so much fun to be lost and running around and trying to figure out what to do next and try to figure out where to go. And then once you finally figure something out, you're like, oh my God, this changes how I even think of gaming. The original Metroid was great. Never really got into Metroid 2 because I didn't have a Game Boy. And when I did see it finally, I thought it was a little awkward. It was like the Samus character, the sprite was way too big. I'm a bit low? Oh my. See. Wait a second. Let me check something here. Sometimes this bullshit, sometimes it does stuff. Oh, sure enough. Is this better? Fucking A. I hate Windows 11. Is this better or is this too loud? Is this too loud now? It might be too loud. It was down to 60%, and I'd never change that. I did not change that once. The only thing I can think is that when I changed... Okay, a little too loud now. Well, how's this now? Way too dank. Dankness. It's bizarre. I don't understand why it turns down my mic at some points. I have no idea. Oh, it's peaking? Oh, I see. See. All right, let me fix this then. I can fix this. Let me bring it back down. Is this better now? Is this better now, you think? Is this better now? I'm going to do this. There. About now there, I think. Right on there now. Is that better? So, anyway, I love the original Metroid. I love Metroid. This better. Thank you, Thighs. Metroid 2 seemed fine, and I loved Super Metroid. Like Super Metroid was like, well, it's the big show. The big show tonight, y'all. But yeah, I love Super Metroid. And then they went into the Metroid Prime. Prime had a trilogy. Good games, wasn't as up to the level of what I liked. And then we got Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance, which was great. There was Metroid Zero Mission, which was great. And then there was like Prime Hunters on the DS or something. And then it was like, ugh. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, Metroid games. I'm glad you got into them. Ring Fit Runner, that's super cool. And if you didn't know, that last voice was our good friend Ring Fit Runner, a regular here in the chat. So, yeah, I think that's it. That's pretty good. And then yeah, he had mentioned the Souls games. I'm not super familiar with them, but wait, you're gonna prime my hunters? Okay, that's interesting. But for me, now, like I said, I always loved RPGs, but one of the responses that I have for that is first-person shooters. That is one perspective or opinion on a genre that I've completely done a 180 on over the last 5 years, on all seriousness. When first-person shooters first got big, there was Wolfenstein 3D, there was Doom, there was Marathon, there was Duke Nukem. You know, these games were coming out, and it was like, whoa, adult-themed, badass shit. And this is like mid to late 90s at this point. And I remember thinking 3D first-person shooters were really cool. Like, they were cool. The kids that were into them, they're fucking cool people. It's not for me, though, because I'm not great with that precision, the hand-eye coordination. I don't know what it is, but Unreal Tournament, yeah, the Unreal games. I loved the first Unreal because it didn't feel like it was just a big shooting up everything game. It was like real slow and methodical and like, oh, yeah, Half-Life, another good one. But again, I wasn't good at those games. I'm not a first-person shooter like specialist. I never played with a keyboard and mouse. I never got good at it with a controller. I thought GoldenEye on the N64 was cool, but again, not for me. Like, I enjoyed playing them with my friends. I enjoyed playing multiplayer, couch co-op, doing stuff like that. When we played GoldenEye, we'd have game nights and stuff like that. It was great. It was a lot of fun. but still not for me. If I had the choice between GoldenEye and like Mario Kart multiplayer, I'll take Mario Kart. I'll take almost anything other than first person shooters. But in 2020, the peak of COVID, when everyone was locked in their homes, a couple friends and I, we started playing Destiny online because in September of 2020, it was the free game of the month. Was it September of 20? Maybe it was 2019. Oh, no, I don't remember. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Wink. Yes, you're roguelike. Yeah, you had mentioned getting into Rule of Rain. Is that what you said? Sorry, let me scroll up. My what? Oh, Risk of Rain, the roguelike that got me into rogues. Yeah, you have to explain a little bit more about that. I do like Risk of Rain from what I've seen. Getting into roguelike type games is very difficult though because I don't necessarily like them either. I still don't know if I like them, but there was one called Nox or Nox Machina, Nex Machina on the PS4 that is roguelike because you get like 3 guys to start from the beginning of the game and get as far as you can, and I just didn't care for it. And then I like that one though. The gameplay is very similar like Smash TV. You just keep going through it until you die and then go back to the beginning and see if you can get farther again. It's multiplayer too, so that's a lot of fun actually. But yeah, so if you hated them before but you like Risk of Rain, then maybe Risk of Rain is one to check out. That's really cool. But for me, Destiny and the first person shooters, and I know that Destiny's not really, that first person shooter, like real deep involving, PvP style stuff, but it is in the first person perspective. It is kind of considered partially an RPG, partially a looter shooter, partially first person shooter. I don't know. There's a lot of genres that go into it. Partially MMO because it's multi-massive online. So I mean, there's a lot that goes with that, but I like it and it's a lot of fun. And I don't know if it was just because playing with my friends or the game itself being great, but I did enjoy it. I do enjoy it. I still enjoy playing it. And there was just the expansion just came out recently, so there's going to be some more money sank into it again to play it some more. But that's pretty much what I've got. I had mentioned too about shoot 'em ups, but I the more I think about it, I think I've always liked shoot 'em ups. I just liked shoot 'em ups until I loved shoot 'em ups when I got my TurboGrafx. Then I knew how great they were. It was just like, whoa, so many good games. But cool, that's awesome. That's really cool. If anybody else has anything else they want to chat about, that'd be super cool. Otherwise, I'm going to start up the Super Nintendo here, and we're going to play some rock and roll racing. If y'all are ready for that, I'm ready for it.